All right, hi guys. So just like we did with our last lesson on estimating with percents, I have found a video today that will really break down how to find the percent of a number. And what I want you guys to remember is that when we're looking at the percent of a number, we know that of in math is multiplication. So this is actually saying 160% times 18. And now Mrs. Dawson is going to walk us through how to solve this problem by either turning this percent into a fraction or turning it into a decimal. So she's going to walk us through both ways, and I'm going to pause throughout just to clarify some things. So let's go ahead and start.
This is Mrs. Dawson. Use percents greater than 100%. Find 160% of 18. We'll do this two ways, first working with fractions and then working with decimals. Method 1, using fractions. 160% of 18 can be found by changing 160% to its fraction equivalent. 160% is equivalent to the fraction 160 over 100. We're finding 160% of 18, which means we're going to multiply by 18. In order to multiply fractions, it's much easier to reduce first. The common factor of 160 and 100 is 20. 160 over 100 will divide out the common factor of 20 and then still multiply that result by 18. 160 divided by 20 is 8. 100 divided by 20 is 5. And we'll multiply.
So really quickly, I wanted to pause it just to clarify that you totally can just solve this problem right here. You can go ahead and solve 160 over 100 times 18, and you would just put 18 over 1, multiply 160 by 18, and then multiply 100 by 1. What she is doing here, though, is very helpful because she's breaking this down and she's simplifying 160 over 100 to be 8 over 5. This makes it easier to multiply by 18, which is what she's about to do. Now, if you do this down here, or if you stay up here and do this, either way, you're going to get the same answer. Because when you multiply 160 by 18, and you get that answer over 100, you're going to have to simplify that fraction anyways. So what she's doing is simplifying first and then solving, but you can also, if you would like, solve and then simplify. This way that she is doing it is a little bit easier because it is easier to multiply 8 by 18 than it is to multiply 18 by 160. So let's go ahead and continue.
By 18 or 18 over 1. 8 times 18 is 144. 5 times 1 is 5. Using method 1 with fractions, 160% of 18 is 144 over 5. Method 2, using decimals. 160% of 18 can be multiplied together by first changing the percent to a decimal. We'll move the decimal point 2 places to the left. 160% is equivalent to 1 6/10, and we'll multiply by 18.
So what she did, just to clarify, is what we have been doing throughout this entire chapter, turning this percent into a decimal by moving that decimal point over 2 spaces because we're dividing by 100 when we're turning this percent into a decimal. So moved it 2 spaces, so it's 1.6 times 18.
18 times 1.6. 8 times 6 is 48. 1 times 6 plus 4 gives us a 10. 8 times 1 and 1 times 1.
She should have written a 0 here. That would have made it easier. You guys know how to do multiplication like this. So when you do 6 times 8 is 48. Your 4 would be carried over here. 6 times 1 is 6, plus that 4 is 10. And then when you go to your next number, you always put a 0 there.
And then add. We had one placeholder, so we'll go to the answer and put one placeholder.
When she says placeholder, what she means is that decimal point. What she's saying is that since it's 1.6, that one decimal point, we need to put that in the answer. So it moves over one place, so our answer is 28.8.
Using decimals, 160% of 18 is 28.8. 28.8, or 28 8/10, is equivalent to the fraction 144/5.
All right, so this is the end of this example video. What I want you to keep in mind is that this is an example of a percent that's greater than 100, as we can see. But we can do this exact same method, method number 1, or method number 2, with any size of percent. If this said 60% and not 160, if we erase this 1, we would complete this whole problem the same way with just having 60 over 100. And then we could simplify and then solve. So either way, no matter what percentage of a number you're finding, these are the two methods that you can use.